We are going to welcome to the stage Will Creedon, who was on before, this founder and CEO of Alloggio, all the way from Australia. Then coming in from, I believe he's coming from Portugal, Gonçalo Ribeiro from Altito is joining us. And then Kamil Krzyzanowski, the CEO of Renters in Poland, is here as well. So global strategies growing in very different markets. We wanted to pick out what's kind of going on in between so you can kind of get the most of it. So get your notepads ready. We're going to get some actionable insights here. And welcome to the stage, our panel led by Robin Clifford from Guesty.
Cheers, buddy. Any preference?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, on behalf of Guesty, thank you for being here. I know a lot of you have traveled a long way. We're very grateful that you guys make the whole things work. And we're very excited to have this panel today to speak to you about how to scale your business. So I'm Robin. I'm the sales director for EMEA at Guesty. I was the first ever supply lead hired at Airbnb in 2015. I headed up their supply across 85 countries. The reason this is relevant is because in that time, I've met thousands of property managers who've tried to scale their business. Some have been successful. 3 of them we have here today. So I'd like to start off by introducing Will.
Hello, everybody. Just in case you missed me earlier on, Will Creedon, hail from Ireland. Dairy farmer's son, moved to Australia 25 years ago. And Karen, my wife, and I founded Alloggio just over 500 weeks ago. So a 10-year anniversary coming up in December. And today we've got 15 hotels and 3,500 properties. And just to add to the confusion, Irishman living in Australia with an Italian name talking to you in Mexico. So I'm going to hand over to Kamil.
And just before you do so, Will and I grew up in the same small town in the south of Ireland. And Will was entrepreneurial from a very young age. When I was 15, he used to open the exit door of the local nightclub to leave me in and let me buy alcohol, which I'm still very grateful for.
It's all about training.
Yeah. And
Get him early.
Yeah, and because we're both from Ireland, if you can't understand us, we don't have a translator, so just bear with us.
Exactly.
Kamil has traveled all the way from Poland. Kamil, tell us about yourself and your business.
Yes, so we started with my wife with single property at the Polish Baltic coast, next to the Polish-German border. It was 20 years ago already. And after we realized that we are doing this job very, very good and we are earning money, generating positive cash flow after paying our bank loans, we decided to build few other holiday homes at the same coast. After reaching 6 or 10 properties, we decided to take properties from property owners. They came to us, they saw that we are generating good money for ourselves, and we started like with 5, 10 other properties. And after a few years, we was a local family company with 70, 80 properties. Now, after we decided in 2018 to scale the business for our whole country, for Poland, we run from 80 to 6,000 units in Poland and Bulgaria. In 1 month, we acquired 2 other companies in Croatia and Latvia. We will have 7,000 units, and hopefully in 2 years, 10,000 in Central and Eastern Europe.
So 1 property to 70, to hundreds, to 6,000, to 7,000, and soon 10,000. Extraordinary story. We're looking forward to hearing more about it. And when we were preparing for this panel, Kamil said to all of us, he was like, I asked him for like, what's the best piece of advice he could give us? And he was like, always listen to your wife.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't have a wife or a husband or another partner, you can get them online now via AI. Not via Guesty, but they are out there. Gonçalo, you've traveled all the way from Portugal?
And Milano specifically.
Milan in Italian?
Yes.
Tell us about yourself and your business.
Ciao guys, very happy to speak about scalability. Hope the energy level will go up. So my name is Gonçalo Ribeiro, but while we are in Mexico, you can call me Gonçalo, no problem. So I'm coming from Europe. Many years ago, 2018, we started one of the biggest property management companies in Europe. So we were in 5 different countries. And I start, as most of the property managers start from cleaning the apartments, doing everything. And in 2019, we had reached the 1,200 properties. And we always wanted to keep scaling our business, adding value, and I will tell you more about that in a second. But ultimately, in 2022, we merged again. So we did one merger, we merged again with Joivy, and we built the biggest living platform in Europe. So not just from short-term rentals, because that was the beginning, but also co-living, student housing, hotels, long-term, co-working, co-living. So now the company manages around 4,000 assets with many rooms into it. I'm very happy to share the story to you guys on the panel as well as offline.
Thanks, Gonçalo. And I've known Gonçalo and his fellow founders since the very, very first unit you had in your building. An extraordinary journey. Looking forward to hearing more about it from you and sharing with the audience. Just before we go to our first question for the panel, can I have a show of hands in the audience if you're a property manager? Okay.
All right.
Hands up if you've ever used a prison to do your cleaning for your laundry. Just one, fellow down there in white. Thank God you saved that question. And he has ran the business of around 1,200 properties. So my point is going to be that there are very, very interesting people in the audience who've scaled their businesses in different ways, including using a prison. As we speak about scale, I want to throw a question to all of you. You know, in my experience since 2015 of being in this space is that it's really difficult to, I find when property managers get to like 150, 200 properties, they get to that point, it's an inflection point where it's quite hard to scale and make money and get new owners and do everything you have to do. So I'm going to start with you, Will. Was there a point in your journey where you thought, wow, you know, this is something I can actually scale? And if so, what did you do in that moment?
Yeah, I suppose there's two parts to that. One is got into business near where I was and actually tried to break it, to understand how far I could push owners. Because if I understood and we understood how you can break the very fragile link of goodwill and trust, you know where not to go next time. And so then we understood that and we started adding owners and more properties. In 2020, when COVID hit everybody and it took us, 12 to 14 weeks to find ourselves, it was really obvious what was going to come next. What I mean is, when you're a child and yourself and you're in the lolly shop and you're full of sugar and you're raring to go, well, that's what's going to happen to the human race after being locked up. So we saw that we could grow at speed if we went and targeted certain businesses and owners based on the fact that we had, during the period of time that we learned to break the business, the fragility of the relationship with the owner, we also realized that we removed the white noise, the things that are shiny in your business, the things by people that work with you or alongside you that think are important and are emotionally important to them, but are not important to cash flow, are not important to sustainability, and not important to building the structure of the right people in your team so you can scale. And that was the moment.
Super interesting. We spoke last night. Will and I both know Michael O'Leary, the managing director of Ryanair, and his philosophy has always been, when you have a partner or a relationship with somebody that's providing you a service, they should be desperately unhappy, but never so unhappy that they leave. Yeah. And that's how you hit profitability. I'm not saying that's your strategy, but it's touching on your point. Kamil, 7,000 properties. Wow. I mean,
It's too less.
It's a lot. So when was the moment where you thought, hey, this is a business, I can scale this?
After we realized that we earn money, my motivation at the beginning was to feed my family. After we realized with 80 or 100 properties that we are one of the best local property managers, we knew that we can do something better and bigger. And my business partner came from a business trip from London to Warsaw back, and he called me and he says, Kamil, I saw a company in London. They are everywhere in a tube. They are on buses, and they don't attract the guests. They are making advertisement to property owners. It was, I remember it was Hostmaker.
They went bankrupt, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. They overinvested probably.
Yeah, marketing.
And that was the moment where we decided that we put the whole budget into the owner ads.
Got it.
We didn't spend our money to attract guests, but the property owners. That was the turning point.
Got it. So 80 properties, you realize you're making some money, families eating well at this point, I imagine. You realize that somebody on a business trip there's a company out there called Hostmaker advertising to just owners, and you shifted your focus to owners, and that's what helped you to double down and scale from there. Gonçalo, I know your journey really well, super exciting. Tell us, when was that inflection point where you thought, yeah, look, we have a business here, we can scale? And what did you do in that moment?
Yeah, very, very good question. So we started a business, all of us as co-founders, in the very early days. So we were like 22, 23, and we only had a vision, which was scale and add value. However, before, all of us had our own property management companies, till 100, 150 units. We were all profitable. We built our teams. We were trying to understand in our markets, how can we corner, how can we scale? But alone, as a founders at the time, because Altido is a merger of 4 companies, and I'll tell you about in a second. We were doing like you, trying to crack the code, going to conference, speaking with people, understanding what we can do, and we were really scary about fundraising, losing control. So we just understood that for us to keep going, how do you say in English, the sum of the parts are big. No, how do you say that?
I'm struggling, fella. Be better in the sum of our parts?
Yes.
There we go.
So we decided to actually merge, and again, as a founder, it's really you struggle a lot to put your ego away and lose a little bit of control. But for us, it was clear for us to keep doing organic growth, we need to join forces, and we need to capitalize and build a brand that actually can scale in Europe. So that was the moment that we found ourselves together, that we knew, okay, we are going big, because again, you also need the counterpart. Everybody was bringing something to the table. At the end of the day, it's about challenging and know-how and fail, but restart really fast. And that was the moment we went out of conquer Europe.
And at that time, I managed all 4 of the companies in Airbnb, or my team did. And I remember at the time when you came in with the first deck about merging, and I think it was at Guesty was where you actually decided to have that first conversation. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, these guys, if they merge in multiple geos, it'll give them some regulation safety proof. And it's likely they could be one of the first companies in Europe to exit in multi-million euros, which is what you did, and you can speak about that later. Kamil, I want to move to you for a question. So there's a lot of growth models in the STR business, in the short-term rental business. How did you go about deciding in the early days what your growth model would be?
There are 3 models which you need to think about. First model is model of your brain, of your own brain, your mindset. If you will not be obsessed to get new property owners, new units, if you will do this only by the way, you will never scale. Or you will scale, but like a snail. And the second model, very important model, is model of the cooperation with your sales team. You need to pay your sales team per acquired property. The longer property stays with you, the more money your team gets for that. But they cannot get money for 0 properties.
Got it.
And the third model, very important model, is the business model with property owners and the contract structure itself. That means at the beginning we started with, as a small company, we needed to compete with local companies with the commission.
Yes.
Everybody was doing, like 20 years ago, okay, let's think about starting the scale business. So everybody was, 2018 was offering to property owners 30%, todo includio, I would say. So included OTAs.
Got it.
That was a wrong business model.
Yeah.
We had this model also.
Yes.
And we decided after a few months, when we realized that we are not earning money, we realized that we need to change the model, switch the model to 20 plus OTAs, for example. And the contracts with property owners, they need to be prepared for changing market situation. You need to have the option to change your prices or commissions without too many negotiations with the property owners in the future. Because if you will make too complicated contract, it will be difficult to renegotiate this again in the future.
Yes.
And now, with so many properties, our model is depending from type of the property, from location. So we are open-minded about this, and we are making the offer depending where, which type of the properties, how much gross booking value can generate the property, etc., etc.
So it's really important to understand your portfolio's contribution margin per property and segment, have the right model in place which can scale, and ultimately you can make money. Will, the same question to you. We've discussed this a few times over a few drinks. I don't remember the answer. Talk to me about your business model.
Well, let me invent it.
Yeah, so make it up if you have to.
I just want to build out what Kamil is saying because he's dead right. There's probably two angles to look at here. One is organic listing growth, and the second is acquisition, right?
Yes.
So organic listing growth, you can actually set the management agreement. And I know that in different jurisdictions or countries, the management agreement may have a term to it or may go on in perpetuity. In Australia and New Zealand, they go on in perpetuity. The second part to that, what does that mean? It means that unless you bugger it up, the owner may or won't terminate with you. So you could have properties for you with 16, 20 years. Rather than in some parts of New Zealand, you have to renew each and every year. So it's a very interesting way to look at it. Why that's an interesting way to look at it? For every property you lose, it takes 2.5 new properties in the first year to replace the revenue of that property.
Yeah.
Because it takes a while to get the new property to develop the algorithms, to develop its place, its positioning, its pricing, etc., etc. So it's really important there. If you can get that right, and Kamil is dead right, with respect, depending on the age of the properties managers or PMCs in an area, they go, believe it or not, from about 11% to 25% commission structures. 100% you do not have OTAs on top. You have OTAs on top, not embedded inside. Because then over time, you want to find that with investigation that you can actually go in with respect to the OTAs and our partners in the room, with God bless you, thank you for all the marketing, but we want to take you directly later. And it's a very interesting thing because that's straight to our bottom lines as the owner of the properties as well as us. Now I want to go to the acquisition side. The acquisition side, you have to live with the management agreement of that PMC. You have to live with the assignment of that. Because if you interfere with that, you actually risk losing the owner through termination. Nobody wants that because you're buying Nottingham. So that's important. Why is that important? Something I said earlier is that you need to structure your business to ingest the different types of management agreements, regardless of where they're coming from, in any location that is suitable to that geography and that age profile, be it of a leisure destination, a regional destination, or an urban destination. Why? Because the repeat customers of that business, you cannot interfere with. So you have to change. You have to allow your people to change, as well as your structure and system. Really important point. You have to be the water that wears away the rock, not the other way around, because you won't be able to scale and you will get frustrated. And the third part is, which you touched on, Matt, very importantly, it's not about your psychological mind, not just about that. You need to bring people around you that are hungry for disruption. They are safe in the world of disruption. You cannot have people around you that is a part of your team that are afraid of change. They will slow you down and they will kill you. So you don't have those people.
Thanks, Will. Moving on to that last piece that you touched on, and I want to pose this question to you, Gonçalo, because I'm conscious of the fact that you merged with 3 companies from 3 different countries, so including your own, you had 4, and we're just talking about disruption. We're in the age of disruption. What's coming is unprecedented. It's very difficult for me or anybody to shine a light on how much disruption AI will cause. But when it comes to the right people, Gonçalo, how do you build the right team? At a certain point in your growth, you must realize that, in your first business, I need a number 2, or somebody like an operations manager, and somebody who's expensive. And how do you build multiple functions across your business? Because I feel like when I talk to property managers, regardless of your size, you're an accountant, you're getting owners, you're doing guests, you're direct business, you're managing OTAs, you're a cleaner, you're a problem solver. How do you scale that, and how do you find the right people? And what was your approach when you were doing it across different geos?
Yes. Very good question. And as we are speaking about scalability, I'll try to give you practical examples as well as suggestions for you to follow. So I think it all starts from you founders, okay? That's the first thing you need to realize, because as a founder, you are the leader of the business. So the first thing you need to do is understand your weakness and strengths. Why? Because that will broadcast to the entire company. So it's really important you know what you are good at and what are your limitations, and ultimately, you can start hiring on the back of it. But more importantly, as we discussed even in this morning, I like to say, at the time, I would like to think we as founders, the business needs us, obviously, always going to need us, but in the beginning, it's really important you reach a certain threshold. And to me, you get to put the vision of, I need to put my head above the water. So the time will be different from all of us. And I think if you have that perception that you are not being burned by the day-to-day, that you need to take your head above the water, that's the right time to find the execs. Now, which execs and what to do. My advice, personal advice, is don't rush it. Trust me, I spoke with dozens of the most brilliant execs you can think of in the industry, but ultimately, going to this conference, knowing people, I never had anyone that did something I really want to test or to do that closed the door to me. So we always were able to get different advice. So you will need the second person. You need advice. You will need a board. You will need non-execs. But my advice is don't rush it. Because if you do it too early, they will get a lot of equity. But at the same time, don't get comfortable. Don't try to, because we did that. We did that mistake. We're trying to hire a friend or a person we knew. Hire the person that is balance your weakness, because that ultimately will give you back time. And I think that's kind of what you guys need to realize.
And it was interesting. I remember in your time, you once interviewed me for CEO of your business, so
Yes.
that would have been a big mistake, right? But I remember you hiring people, and Will in particular was a good mate of mine, and Mick from Scotland, and they were super excited. And we were playing golf, and Mick would be telling me on the first hole there after hiring this huge exec, and by the time we got to the 18th hole, he was like, he's useless. We've got to get rid of him. So it is really important at that point in time to make the right hires. I want to touch on a question for all of you, because I look at the three of you and I think I know you really well, obviously, over the years, and you've built really successful businesses. You've built them profitably. You've got really, really good teams, and I think, oh well, these three guys are brilliant. But tell us biggest mistakes, because along that journey, you must have made some mistakes which really hurt your business. And one thing I'd love to give the audience is some advice, or potentially some things that happened that they can avoid those pitfalls in the future. So Will, you're a man who's made a lot of mistakes in your life. We're good friends.
Yes.
Tell us about some from your business part of your life.
I'm still making the mistakes, to be honest with you. Look, Gonçalo, you're right. Think slowly, act real fast. My wife said that to me. It's about, there's a few things here going on. It's about finding the right people at the right time to take you to the next stage. And you need to be ruthlessly honest with yourself, and then the next thing needs to kick in. You need to go to other people to help you interview that person to make sure that they're filling the gaps that are actually in the business, not you. The second part is, I didn't step away soon enough. Like, I'm a control freak, and
Are you?
yeah, well, people have said that. Like, I don't believe them. I think I'm not deep enough in the detail, but anyway, that's another day. But I am. And you can't let others blossom if you invade the space. You have to create divide. The third thing is, like, I deeply believe in people. No one ever turns up to fail. And I believe you just, it's like you use your mobile phone, you dial the right number, the other person picks up. And so I used to look at it, I'm dialing all these numbers and the other person isn't picking up, right? At some stage you need to say, stop, this person is not right. Or they may be right, just not in my business. And you need to have that hard call with yourself to allow them be free. It's not just about Alloggio, it's about them. Let them be free. The next thing, massive failures. Sometimes your passion overtakes like a shade of gray, overtakes your cash flow. You believe so hard that this is going to crack it, and you don't fail fast enough.
Yes.
Like, just fail it. It's okay. Like, we're entrepreneurial. For every 10, 2 will work. That means 8 that won't. We just need to think like that. 8 won't work. And it's okay to fail. It is really okay. It takes a bit of time, honestly, to live with that. But once you crack that, you can just run all the time. The only thing I will say then is that you need to help your team run too. Because they will think, God almighty, all he's doing is he's everywhere, but he's nowhere. Well, it's unfortunate. Most people with founders, because you're so passionate and driven to get to the end, the finish line as quickly as possible, because we've only got 4,000 weeks to live, so every week is really important to us, that we will not stop. And that part is where I kill people genuinely, and it hurts me, because that's not what I'm about. But it's because of the sheer will to get somewhere. And that's where you need to control, and founders need to control that. And it's a hard thing to do, but you need to control it. And I'm going to pause.
I think it's interesting. I think, just paraphrasing what you're saying, in business, bad news early is typically good news.
Yep.
You win or you learn. And I think when it comes to being a founder, an entrepreneur, you're managing a team of people and you're super passionate, sometimes you forget to remind them of where it is you're going and why you're going there. Like the amount of times you'll ask somebody to do something in your business, and I'm guilty of myself and Guesty, and just assuming they understand the why. The why is really important. And the last thing I would say is that when you're racing around and you're trying to be really successful and do all these things and scale your business, it's your business. Don't expect everybody else to understand, have your mindset, and you need to be in the business of lifting people up, not putting them down in difficult times, and giving them a chance. But like that, when it doesn't work, you have to cut, and you have to cut as early as possible. Kamil, the same question to you. So you've gone from 1 to 70, 7,000. I've known you for a couple of years now, and it seems like you've made a lot of right steps. Some mistakes that you look back and think, wow, that hurt me. Advice I would give to people and say, don't do that.
At the beginning, the first mistake was forgetting the Excel files, working too hard and too fast, and don't calculating your business every single month.
Okay.
When you are scaling, you need to spend a lot of money for marketing, for sales team, etc., etc. And after a few months, you realize, okay, where is money? There is no money. We need to change something. That was the first mistake. Excel.
So going too fast, not keeping an eye on your P&L,
yes,
thinking that you're growing, but ultimately you're not scaling profitably. Okay.
So it was good that we were going fast, because when COVID, when the pandemic hit the world, we had already from 80 to 800, but we lost almost a half in the first months of COVID.
Painful, yeah.
Because the second topic, the business model was a little bit wrong. We had also contracts with fixed monthly payments for property owners.
Oh.
And it was almost about a half of the portfolio. It was good before COVID. Those properties, they earned the most of money for us.
Understood.
But during COVID, and yes, during the first week of COVID, we went almost bankrupt.
Got it.
And the second or third topic was, you need to work very hard. You need to have a fighter mindset. But if you work too hard, you can get a burnout, and then the whole company will get the same, because if the leader has a burnout, it works for the whole company. So you need to work very hard, but you need to have life-work balance.
So keep an eye on your profitability in the early days. Yeah. Make sure you've got the right business model, which allows for a pandemic or some massive change in the macro, because lots of geopolitical issues, as we know, and it could be your country or a border of your country that goes to war or something happens. And then lastly, is just remind yourself of the passion you have, but also a sustainable amount of energy for a longer term project. And I guess have an idea of I'm going to do this for 7 years, 10 years, and not just charge for the mountains every day and after 2 years be burnt out.
Yes.
Because people around you will drop
their
their
energy. There was also one more technical thing about M&As. Because after, I think after 1,000 properties, we started to buying local companies. And the mistakes which we made with M&As, first of all, you need to verify who is responsible for contacts with property owners in the acquired company.
Yes.
Because if you don't identify these persons, and if they will not stay with the company, with the acquired company, you can lose a lot of property
It's
owners.
like the IP of the business, basically, that new person.
Yes.
Makes
So
total sense.
we had a situation after acquiring a company with 550 units, we lost 25% after a few months.
Yeah, and that's a painful lesson to learn. You only want to learn that lesson once, and I hope nobody in the audience has to learn it again in the future. From listening to both of you, one thing that strikes me is that you're like friendly madmen. And what I mean by that is like you're super passionate, very driven, you've built very successful businesses, but I'd imagine working with you is quite challenging. And this you've both mentioned about that thing of like charging and energy, and I think both of you I sense have learned that you have to temper your personality a little bit because not everybody is you. You want people who are driven and charging for the mountains, but you can't expect everybody to have the same drive as the founder, right? I think that's important.
100%. Sorry.
Yeah. So
you go on.
I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So Gonçalo, the same question to you. You know, your journey is extraordinary. 4 different companies, 4 countries. You merged, multi-million exit. There must have been a lot of learnings in that in itself. Biggest mistakes along the way? I mean, there's so many, I'm sure, but like the biggest ones.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, embrace failures. That's how you do innovation, and that's how you disrupt the market. But I will give you 2 tangible ones. One for us, which is very close to heart, and then I'll give you a more general one. But in terms of M&A, speaking about M&A, we learned for a hard lesson, and we did 2 M&As, massive ones, by the way. Whenever you are merging companies, do it as fast as possible because it will compound. And when I speak about merging companies, I'm speaking about people, process, and tech. And I think we were quite naive or quite romantic about we're buying companies, we're integrating everybody into this. No, you need to take the bandit out, do it as fast as you can because you need to ultimately build a framework. And then the framework you can scale. If you wait too long, you'll bite in the ass, and sorry for my French. And the second one, more tangible, I would say, too many focus, right? Like, I think I see so many property management companies really having all the focus possible because everything is important. The previous session was about AI, and everybody's excited about AI. I am too, but my advice to you, practical one, would be have 3 bets per year and don't do anything apart from executing them. But they have to be connected to your vision, they have to be connected to your strategy, but AI is a great example. We also want to do AI, but we start from the bottom. We have to get our data structure, data set, and then we can really start leveraging the data part with AI. So if I have also to give 2 advice, if you allow me to give 2 advice.
Yeah, we've got 8 minutes left, so the next question is, what advice would you give to the audience? I'm just going through my questions. What advice would you give to the audience that they can use and put back into their business? So they meet you next year and they go, Gonçalo, I must remember to thank him.
Yes, obviously I think there's a lot, and for me personally, and scaling the company from 0 to 4,000, what I would actually say, I'm very into values, and values are not strict rules. But when we scale, and I know for most of you, values is very cheesy, you know, like be pioneering, build trust, all these things. But ultimately, when you have the framework right and your team understand, that's when you become redundant because they will follow the script, right? And I can give you a great example. This happened a few years ago in London, where one of our values is actually build trust. Okay, so we incentivize everybody to build trust with our, user, tenants, or owners. And then I remember that I went to London, and we had almost 5-star reviews everywhere, and I got really intrigued by it. So I spoke with the operational manager and I asked him, "How are we getting there? Like, what are you guys doing that the rest of the other cities are not doing?" And he kind of said to me, "Look, Gonçalo, one thing we did, which is very stupid, very simple, that costs 0 money." So in London, very high-end properties, right? And most of the high-end properties have the high-end clients. They are always micromanaging, checking everything to get a refund, right? So he actually put below the beds like a sticker say, "Yes, it's clean too here." And that was a wow factor that completely surprised the guest, but build trust with them that we are cleaning the properties correctly. So it just adds value. So that, to me, the values is how you scale, because you can make you redundant because they will follow the strategy. The second piece of advice, and I think Will Creedon spoke a little bit about it before, it's just about data, really. I know it's boring, but trust me, we have to get the data and the KPIs correct, and you have to use it for your business, for monthly business, weekly business review, monthly business review to understand how the business is going, but ultimately, in connect to the scalability, if you don't have data, you are blind. Why? Because you cannot make your managers accountable, and if they are not accountable, it's you that have to do the work. So those are kind of just practical advice, very simple ones, but that's how you can really go to scale. At least that was our experience.
Thanks, Gonçalo. Kamil, I'm going to come to you. So some advice for the audience on what advice would you give people in the audience who are trying to scale their business?
Be a fighter. And I remember one taxi driver in Singapore told me something important, and I remember this. Be healthy, be lucky, and don't be lazy.
Be healthy, be lucky, and don't be lazy. Why aren't you writing that down? This is amazing. So maintain your personal and mental well-being so you can lead the business and everybody in it towards the vision you're charging towards. I think it's really solid advice, and I think, you know, most of the S&P 500 companies have actually done a very good job on this, and this is why they scale their business. Will, coming to you, some advice for the folks in the audience on the do's and don'ts of scale, I guess.
Yeah. Building on the two guys, I suppose there's two things that I think about. One is, and they touched on it, but identifying both in regions, so in your geographies, the people that touch owners and touch guests, three things that they have to focus on, and in the same in the central teams, and reward them, incentivize them. Because what is incentivized is focused on. So just give them three things and you watch it, what happens. The second is, and this happens, and believe it or not, in about 75, 80 minutes time, I've got a blockers call. And in the blockers call, every day, it goes for 30 minutes. Every single department head is in the blockers meeting. And we in our business, regardless where we are in the world, dial in and we figure out what's blocking our business today, be it for acquisitions, be it for transitioning platforms, be it our humans ourselves. And we collectively decide what is to happen. And in one meeting in 30 minutes, the whole company knows what's going on. That's part 2A. Part 2B is that you need a translator. And what I mean by that is that you, the founders, know every single bit about your business. You know why you bought that business. You know why that owner stays with you. You know why that corporate account is with you, etc., etc. But nobody else really does. You need to find and create an avenue for that information to actually go to others. And at the same time, identify a number of people that actually can take that, talk to it in a way that the vocabulary suits revenue managers, trust accountants, reservation agents, transactional accounting agents, as well as the people that deal with the most important people in your business, the owners. And suddenly what happens over time, the IP spreads across many different people. And when someone gets sick, or someone needs to create succession in the business, because we all need to be identifying who is next, who are we going to support, who could potentially be the CEO, the CFO, etc., etc. That's where it starts. So you need that fluid way to help people to come and blossom.
Makes a ton of sense. And just from my side, to give you some advice, because like I said, I've been around for 10, 15 years, and most of my close friends are property managers. It's quite a sad life I have. I just kind of go,
Yeah.
why are you laughing at that?
Mike being one of them for sure.
But yeah, I speak at about 25 events in 25 different countries every year for the last 10 years, so I've been around. And a couple of mistakes I see is, one is that people don't understand the contribution margin of each property in their business. They understand the contribution margin of their portfolio, but not each property. How much does it cost to send the cleaner to this one versus the ADR? So first, understand your contribution in each property. And if it's a vanity metric, the number of properties I have, cut the ones that don't make sense.
Absolutely.
The second one is, people focus a lot on building their direct business. Totally in favor of building direct business. It makes total sense if you can do it for less than the cost of an OTA booking, which is circa 15%. But when I speak to people, they burn a lot of calories on their direct business, and I say, how much of your business comes direct? 5%, 10%, 15, 20, 25, 30. I'm like, okay, how much of your time and how much money do you spend on the 90% on Airbnb, Booking.com, and Expedia, and making sure that you're doing really well in the algorithm? How often do you change your profile picture? How often do you change the text? How often do you know the seasonality, when the booking window is, for when the Pope is coming, the World Cup is on, and you change your text. There are companies out there that you can pay who will do this for you. Have you tested it? No. So you've tested on the 10%, but the 90%, it just sits over there and it just happened. You're like a passenger. That's another piece of advice. And the last piece of advice I would give you is that when it comes to technology, I've spent my life seeing people burn calories and capex on technology. It's not a good playbook. Unless you're a massive business, which most of us are not in the SDR business, companies like Guesty are there to burn calories to take this hassle away from you. The technology we have, as good as it is, will be outdated in 12, 24, 36 months because tech is being disrupted so much by AI. Finance is being disrupted by crypto. Leave that job to people whose sole job it is to do it and get on with the business of focusing on owners and scaling your business. You're not a technology company. You will never be valued as a technology company, and there's no future in investing money in technology. It's a really bad play. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Guesty. I've seen companies pour millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Hostmaker, who you referred to, they burnt about $15 million on technology.
In money in
And
2
nobody gave a
years.
when they came to liquidate, nobody gave a shit about their technology. It was like, how many owners do you have? What's the churn rate? Who owns the contracts? And what are they worth? You're a property management business managing owners, not even guests, just owners. Focus on the owners and you'll scale your business.
Yeah, Robin, as well as one takeaway there about the technology is find your USP as well. You know, technology is not the answer sometimes.
Correct.
If you are scaled at us, part of it could be, but find your USP.
And we're really grateful to everybody. Go
I
on, Will,
want to have
quickly.
one word.
One more.
Yeah. Everybody's saying here, stick to your knitting. Let technology companies be a partner. And with respect, you can move them in and move them out as they grow older, grow
Well,
young.
don't move them out.
Number two, with respect, there's always somebody else to do the job for you across the world.
Yeah.
Find partners that have human scalability to them, that are really good and concentrate on niches, and bring them into your business and partnerships. And again, you can bring them in and let them out.
And lastly, when it comes to AI, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Absolutely.
AI is moving like that. You are not an AI expert. That's not what you do. Leave that to companies like Guesty or companies in our marketplace, because that will change at a price where any money you invest now will be totally redundant in 12 months' time. So thank you so much for your time. Will, Kamil,
Thanks,
Gonçalo,
guys.
great guys. Thank you for your time. We're around for a couple of days. Thank you so much. God bless.
Well done there.